In the beginning there was light. The sky, the water, and the land. Clouds rolled, water flowed, and light played upon the surface of the earth. From the earliest records, it is clear that men have long been embarked on a quest for the meaning of life. The ancient Chinese legend of Shen Nong tells of his search for healing herbs, during which it is said he partook of 100 different grasses in a single day, experiencing the effects of 70 poisons in the process. This legend clearly illustrates the method of trial and error by which our ancestors must have discovered medicinal plants. And the search for healing substances continues to this very day. Our story begins more than 3,500 years ago in Egypt, amid a flourishing civilization where the value of medicine had long been recognized. The Abel's Papyrus, believed to be the world's oldest surviving treatise in the field of medicine, makes reference to some 600 medicinal substances, many of which are still used today. Gum arabic, pomegranate bark, aloe, and peppermint are among those substances that have been used as medicines for thousands of years. The Abel's Papyrus mentions a substance that was prescribed for restless infants, a substance believed to have been opium. Let's trace the history of opium, a substance that is now so stringently controlled. Nearly 3,000 years ago in ancient Greece, there lived the poet Homer, who is remembered for his epics, the Iliad and the Odyssey. It is believed that the substance Homer called nepenthe in his Odyssey, which made men forget their worries, was in fact opium. Later in the history of classical Greece, Hippocrates, the 5th century BC father of medicine, found opium to be a highly effective remedy. During the 4th century BC, Theophrastus, a disciple of both Plato and Aristotle, wrote at length of opium. As a result of his treatise, Enquiry into Plants, Theophrastus is known as the father of botany. During the 1st century AD, a work that would have a far-reaching impact on pharmacology was published. Entitled Materia Medica, it was written by the Greek physician Dioscorides. He was the first person to systematically categorize natural substances in terms of their special characteristics and medicinal effects. For more than 1,500 years, the Materia Medica stood as the unchallenged reference in pharmacology. Curiously, Dioscorides described the exact same method for extracting opium from the poppy plant that is in use today. Here is his description of the process. 2 or 3 days after the flower falls from the plant, the opium pod turns green and swells. While the pod remains unripened, make incisions in it. From these shallow incisions, a milky fluid will ooze forth and quickly harden. This mass is the opium itself. Through an uncanny twist of nature, the seeds contained in the poppy's pod are utterly harmless and are often sprinkled liberally on bakery items. Yet the reputation of the opium drug itself is a terrible one familiar to all. Again, Dioscorides said, taken in measured dosages, it relieves pain, induces sleep, and aids digestion. Taken to excess, however, it causes a state of torpor and, ultimately, death. And indeed, those addicted to opium have long experienced a wretchedness far in excess of what Dioscorides described. What is the active agent in opium? And what then comprises a safe dosage? These and other questions long remained unanswered for researchers. Until the turn of the 19th century, when the secrets were finally unlocked. By that time, over 3,000 years had passed since opium's discovery. At the age of 20, while working in a small pharmacy, a German named Sir Turner solved the riddle posed by opium. Since the active agent in opium, which he isolated, induced lethargy, he gave it the name morphine, after Morpheus, the Greek god of dreaming. With the identification of morphine, it was finally possible to dependably prescribe appropriate dosages, and opium immediately became the sedative of choice. Along with this breakthrough, progress was made in the isolation of active agents in a wide variety of natural medicinal substances. Yet nature closely guards her secrets. To quote from Dioscorides' Materia Medica once more, the liquor brewed from the leaves of the willow produces outstanding results in combating the gout. Later researchers, acting on this ancient advice, discovered a substance in willow leaves that had demonstrable analgesic properties. Great difficulty was encountered, though, in isolating the active agent from willow leaves. Researchers eventually managed to obtain it from a plant called Spiraea. They called the substance salicin. A name, however, derived from the Latin salix, the generic term for willow. Though this active agent was isolated, it was far too bitter to be taken orally, requiring further work in the development of a remedy. a derivative was produced called salicylic acid. Today, this derivative is a common ingredient in preparations taken internally. The discovery of an analgesic that could be taken orally occurred in 1899. More than 1,800 years had passed since Dioscorides published his findings, and acetylsalicylic acid. Now a universally taken remedy for pain and fever, it is commonly known as aspirin. Both salicylic acid and aspirin are now synthesized in the laboratory, and there is no longer any need to rely upon the willow tree. China, a civilization that has long rivaled that of the West. During the 1st century AD, the first catalog of organic medicines was compiled in China and was entitled the Shen Non Pen Sao Ching. This catalog contains some 365 organic medicines categorized into 3 classes. The first class consisted of 120 non-toxic medicines which were believed to prolong life. The most noteworthy were ginseng, cinnamon bark, and licorice root. The second class also contained 120 medicines, both toxic and non-toxic depending upon application, and were believed to induce vigor. The third class consisted of 125 useful but potentially poisonous medicines, and great care had to be taken in their administration. The writings contain this reference to rhubarb. Rhubarb has a bitter taste, yet acts in various ways on the body's functions, and has the ability to sedate the 5 principal visceral organs. Recent research has borne out these writings' reference to the curative properties of rhubarb. Rhubarb originates in the regions of Tibet, Qinghai, Sichuan, and Kansu. Long treasured as an effective remedy, rhubarb saw widespread use throughout the continent of Asia. Ancient Chinese medicines made their way over the celebrated Silk Road east to Japan, and west to India, Arabia, Greece, and Rome. Marco Polo, whose travels throughout Asia helped deepen understanding between East and West, recorded these observations regarding the use of rhubarb. In Tangut, on the frontier of China, rhubarb is grown in great abundance, and here merchants come to barter for it, and from here it is transported to the 4 corners of the globe. The commanding summit of Mount Yatsugatake in central Japan. Here, horticulturists at the Yatsugatake Herbal Medicine Nursery, which is operated by the Meiji College of Pharmacy, have succeeded in growing rhubarb, long thought unsuited to the climate of Japan. It is the month of June, when the rhubarb plant is in blossom. The rhubarb cultivated here is indispensable to the facility's program for analyzing the medicinal properties of the plant. Maintaining the purity of various strains of rhubarb is an extremely important aspect of research in Chinese herbal medicines. The stubborn roots of the rhubarb plant contain the medicinal substances and are difficult to remove from the soil. By sectioning a root, we can see that the inside is bright yellow. It is for this coloration that the Chinese named the plant. The roots must be washed and dried in preparation for use. The Department of Pharmacognosy and Phytochemistry of the Meiji College of Pharmacy has a program for rhubarb plant tissue culture. The technique takes a tissue sample from the rhubarb plant to be used in reproduction. This greatly enhances the possibilities for cultivation. Professor of Herbal Medicine Shoji Shibata, having spent years researching the Chinese herbal pharmacopoeia, comments, "What first drew me to this research was my appointment in the late 1940s to participate in a pharmacopoeic survey of the Shosoin, the Imperial Family Museum in Nara, Japan. There, I encountered the ancient Chinese herbal medicines that are housed in the imperial collection. These medicines were imported from Tang Dynasty China some 1,300 years ago and were donated to the Imperial Family Museum by the Japanese Emperor Shomu. I believe it was my first-hand encounter with these ancient surviving medicines that so impressed me and inspired me to embark on my subsequent research." Here we see an excerpt from a film of the pharmacopoeic survey in which Professor Shibata was engaged at that time. The Imperial Family Museum, or Shosoin, originally the treasury of Todaiji Temple, has been the repository of artifacts donated by Japanese Dowager Empresses throughout history. The collections consist not only of treasures from Japan, but artifacts of cultural significance from Tang Dynasty China, from Persia, India, Arabia, and Greece. More than 6,000 artifacts are housed here, all of which have been classified as priceless treasures from ancient cultures, now preserved against the ravages of time and the ebb and flow of history. Imagine the excitement of the researchers as they first glimpsed at these ancient medicines. Here in the Organic Pharmacology Laboratory of the Meiji College of Pharmacy, state-of-the-art technology aids research. A battery of chromatographic instruments is used to determine the chemical structure of medicinal substances. This work, which used to require years of painstaking research, can now be accomplished in a fraction of that time. Other instruments, like this spectro multi-channel photodetector, and this nuclear magnetic resonance spectrometer simplify the task of determining molecular structures. And so, the scope of pharmacology is rapidly expanding. Once again, Professor Shibata. With the development of various up-to-date separation techniques, it is possible to isolate trace elements, the presence of which we were once not even aware. Assuming the scope of our research continues to grow, I foresee the possibility of an endless range of discoveries. Students of the Meiji College of Pharmacy are seen here conducting field studies. Since the classical period of ancient Greece, pharmacy, as with other natural sciences, has had a firm base in empirical observation. The range of natural medicinal substances is great, and their properties highly varied, and so a variety of measures are required in their study. And yet, researchers inevitably return to the field. A closer examination of nature itself may disclose secrets to those willing to invest the time and patience. Certainly, the rewards are well worth the effort. For though nature may seem to guard her secrets well, they passively await discovery by man. let us not forget the significant role played by men who traveled the Silk Road. For this road unfolds for us even today, and each one of us is a traveler upon it, embarked on a journey through the natural wonders of this world.